So my position is that I believe Trump is antithetical to everything American, whether that is him abusing powers, going against the Constitution. I mean, mainly those two things. His foreign policy, national policy is obviously all pretty atrocious. But if you want to talk about him abusing executive powers, I'd like to talk about that. Specifically in reference to the Mayor Adams case, where he's dropping the charges without prejudice.
Go ahead.
Is that not a blatant form of corruption that he's extorting? How is dropping a charge without prejudice on a mayor that got federally indicted not corrupt?
It happens all the time. I mean,
I know what you're talking about.
But, I mean, the charges were political in nature. President Trump got targeted by the Department of Justice. He goes out of his way to also show lawfare goes after both parties and drops the charges against a Democrat mayor, Eric Adams. Dropping charges without prejudice happens all the time. Biden did it for a lot of cases that the Trump administration had. If we want to talk abuse of power, maybe we should talk about how Joe Biden pardoned his entire family the last hour of his presidency. How Joe Biden pardoned Anthony Fauci preemptively, and Adam Kinzinger preemptively, and Liz Cheney preemptively, and Adam Schiff preemptively. Not that Donald Trump's DOJ dropped charges against Eric Adams. Joe Biden is the one that had to preemptively pardon his brother and his entire crime syndicate with the stroke of a pen the last hour of his presidency. If anybody is abusing power, it would be the prior president who didn't even know he was president, not Donald Trump.
Okay, so, I mean, you kind of pivoted there, but I will acknowledge what Joe Biden did was probably a corrupt abuse of actions. I would say abuse of power. But you also have to acknowledge Donald Trump is also abusing power in the same instant.
How? Because you keep saying that.
Because yes, he's extorting him because he's now letting ICE run jurisdiction in Rikers Island, which Mayor Adams signed an executive order letting ICE go back into Rikers Island.
Okay, so what are your facts? Where are the documents? Where are the first-hand, original source testimony that show there's an extortion at play? That's a huge accusation.
So Emil Bove even said himself, the Deputy Attorney General, that he's dropping the charges not based off any evidence, but it would be because it would interfere with his mayor duties. I don't know why we should drop federal charges on someone that for mayor interfering with mayor duties, that doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, but you would acknowledge I'm confused on why you don't think this is corrupt. Him federally dropping federal charges.
Because it's not corrupt. Again, lawfare is a problem that affects both parties.
I mean, but
so
you would agree what Joe Biden did is corrupt, but not Trump?
No. One was pardoning your family for the first time in American history. The other one is inheriting a sloppy, politically targeted case of the Department of Justice and then dismissing those charges.
But they said they're not dropping it based on the case of the evidence. They're not dropping it based on any type of evidence.
You can drop based on again. That's one Deputy Attorney General's interpretation. But why don't you tell me what Eric Adams was charged with?
For bribery, I believe misuse of funds. He defrauded New York for $5 million.
Yeah, like taking international flights on Turkish Airlines. I mean, it was like this insane case.
I mean, you're downplaying it, but
of course I am. Because let's be honest, why is it that Eric Adams was indicted?
Because he got caught of committing federal crime.
No, because Eric Adams was the only blue state mayor in the country to speak out against Biden's mass migration invasion, and they used Eric Adams as an example to try to say, if you dare step out of line against the 10 million people that come across the southern border, we will come against you. But how is it an abuse of power to do what the Department of Justice is constituted to do?
Because this isn't based off any evidence. This is a federal indictment. Obviously, if you want to make the distinction that he tried, his immigration policy could be reflective of why he got charged, that is only speculation. There'd be zero proof in that. What we do know is that Mayor Adams did go to Mar-a-Lago, and then, 3 days later, he got the charges dropped on him without prejudice? And if it was corrupt, why is he dropping without prejudice? Why wouldn't he just drop the charges or pardon him?
Do you know what without prejudice means?
Yeah, they can bring the charges back.
Yes, that's actually it's even a lower grade of it, which means that if there's more evidence, then they could reintroduce charges. But so they didn't do it with prejudice.
But it's not based off the evidence.
I'm interested though. So out of all the examples you could use, you think Donald Trump's corrupt and abusive power because he has dropped the politically charged motivation of the mayor of the largest state in the country?
We can go to him improperly using tariffs, calling national emergencies on Canada. He said there's a fentanyl crisis in Canada. There absolutely is.
No, there's fentanyl crisis in our country coming from Canada.
But he's saying it's happening at the northern border. That's how he's able to unilaterally accept. So do you believe do you believe him implementing tariffs is him executing his economic policy or national policy?
Well, national security, both.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, you would agree that if you're going to try stopping fentanyl from coming into the country, you would at least give them a target number to get to. He hasn't provided anything.
No, he did. That's not correct.
What's the number?
Well, actually, it was privately discussed because you don't know that, but that's fine. It was privately discussed.
So what's the number? What is he?
I'm not going to tell you the number,
Okay,
but I
I
happen
mean-
to know it. But like again, there was a benchmark that Canada was given in the intermediary period, Canada and Mexico. And by the way, do you know how many people die from drug overdoses every year in America?
A lot. That's
well
not.
over,
That's not what I'm not.
No, actually, it is what you're
that's
asking.
No,
It's 100.
not.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
It's absolutely what it is. It's 110,000 people die from drug overdoses, and a lot of people in South Carolina die from drug overdoses. That's a national security problem. When you have drugs flowing from a foreign country into your nation, and you use tariffs as a way to stop it, that is well within the commander-in-chief duties of the President of the United States. And President Trump was elected to do that.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're just talking about problems. 99.8% of the fentanyl that comes in this country does not come from the northern border. The same way he's enacting national emergencies on all the countries to implement his tariffs across the world.
Well, just to be clear, the Canadian tariffs were also because more people on the terrorist watch list come across the northern border than the southern border. So it was fentanyl plus the terrorist watch list. But then you would agree the Mexican tariffs are great because almost all the fentanyl in this country come across the southern border from Mexico.
I would say you have more of a case, but I believe why Trump is enacting these tariffs is clear for his economic policy. That's probably pretty corrupt. Him revoking constitutional rights is also pretty corrupt.
Wait, hold on. What constitutional rights is he revoking?
The Fifth Amendment, First Amendment.
On who? For what U.S. citizen?
Yeah.
No, what U.S. citizen does not have Fifth Amendment rights?
Okay, so you would agree that other people inside the United States, like lawful permanent residents, are also getting their green cards, also getting their Fifth Amendment revoked, right?
but green card holders don't get the same constitutional rights.
Do.
No, they
Wait,
do not.
Hold on. Wait,
if an MS-13 member is in jail, they don't get Fifth Amendment rights.
Garcia is not an MS-13 member. That was all hearsay.
Oh, no, hold on a second.
He was
already charged for it in court documents.
No.
He's been here for 10 years. He tried to evade, and he actually is back in his home country of El Salvador in a much different type of environment.
Would you agree that the judge, Trump is literally ignoring judges' orders. He got a withholding for removal, correct?
Well, hold on.
Maryland.
Tension between the second and third branch is nothing new. But explain to me how a circuit court judge, a federal judge, a district court judge has jurisdiction about what happens over international waters. Explain that to me.
No, I'm not even talking about the TROs that was implemented. I'm talking specifically about the Maryland case. How?
No, the Maryland case is that. So they scoop this guy up. They send him to El Salvador. How does a guy, a district court judge, have jurisdiction when happens international
You're
waters?
referring to Boasberg. I'm not. I'm talking about the Maryland judge that gave him withholding for removal. They violated that completely. They took him out of Maryland.
Hold on, no, you have to answer the question. The guy's in El Salvador now.
Yeah, I know. But
so then how does that judge have any jurisdiction over that?
Because you're referring to Boasberg implementing the TROs.
They're both.
If you're gonna talk about him,
this Maryland judge just ordered the return of this guy in El Salvador. Yes.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, yeah. So how does that judge have jurisdiction?
I'm not even referring to that. I'm referring to 2019, way before where he was granted withholding for removal. Correct?
Okay, I'm not familiar. I'm not as familiar with that.
He was granted withholder for removal. And then, the ICE agents took him and deported him.
I do have to
contrary.
take a step back. Do you guys see how far the left fights for MS-13 members?
No.
You are fighting for that. Because
no, I'm not. I'm fighting for constitutional rights, not MS-13
hold on a
members.
second. These illegals do not have the same constitutional rights we do. They don't vote. They don't get to vote. They can't buy firearms. They don't get the same due process. You broke our laws to come into this country. You don't get the same rights as a U.S. citizen, especially if you are part of MS-13. Especially if you are part of an enemy occupying force.
No.
And what I find, and again, this is a left-wing tactic to try to slow down the deportation effort, try to make saying, well, we need to have human rights for all the people that are coming here. Where were the human rights for the student at University of South Carolina that was just killed? Or the human rights of Laken Riley that was just killed at University of Georgia? And the left is intentionally trying to make permanent the enemy occupation of our land, trying to use our own customs against us for people that have never cared about our customs altogether. It is a giant scam, and I hope the deportations continue at great pace.
Once again, my point was not about me caring for illegal immigrants, MS-13 members, gang members. It was strictly on constitutional rights. There has been no case law to say that illegal immigrants don't deserve Fifth Amendment rights or First Amendment rights, which are clearly being revoked. You would agree that he's not getting due process, correct?
No, there absolutely is case law. You can repel an invasion.
No,
if a nation invades you, are you allowed to repel them, shoot them? Are you allowed to do that? Or do you have to stop every person that invades you and say, well, you have a right to speak and a right to an attorney? These are enemy combatants on our land. You don't have to all of a sudden give them a lawyer.
I mean, if you just don't like American law, that's fine. But people under the jurisdiction of the United States.
If someone invades America, what are we allowed to do?
You're allowed to deport them. Absolutely.
No. Forget deporting them. I'm talking about like invasion.
What would you consider an invasion? Are you talking about coming over here with guns?
No, that's interesting. So MS-13 is a state. Right. is a state-sponsored narco-terrorist organization from the government of Venezuela. This is not just a bunch of moms carrying babies. These are military-aged men that were previously in jail that were here with the intent to sow discord and crime and hurt the American people. Therefore, they are an enemy force on our land.
Fair, but Garcia wasn't. You can acknowledge that.
No, he was.
He absolutely. No, it was completely hearsay. Marco Rubio and Caroline Levitt have both lied about that.
Okay,
it was complete hearsay. And to be clear, wait. So for the 260 other people that have not got due process, you were fine with Trump invoking the Aliens Enemies Act
of course.
to revoke them of due process.
Yeah, we should be 26,000 of them.
So
and they're illegals. Again, by the way, this should send a message to the rest of the world.
How do we know where they're illegal?
Because they don't have proper documentation. Where's your passport?
But they weren't given due process.
I don't have one. No. You see, that's not true. Due process is a completely different thing of actually how these flights were loaded up. They went through scrupulous detail of every single individual. They had their identity. They fingerprinted them. They double-checked them with their country of origin. And then they say, hey, are you a U.S. citizen? They say no. Can we look in the database? There was an incredible amount of precision that went into this. But if you believe the media's lie, that, they just scooped up a bunch of random 260 people on the side of the street. Just so we're clear, the people on this flight were accused of raping children. These are people. Yes, they are. No, that's 100% true.
I know, true. But I'm not even making that argument.
No,
You're trying to get to a morality argument.
No.
I'm talking strictly from the American Constitution, right? Because I'm not even.
Where in the U.S. Constitution does it say those rights and privileges are applicable to people that come to your land illegally?
It gives credence to every person in the jurisdiction of the United States.
Yeah, but not if they're uninvited, and that goes back to the
absolutely.
That goes back to the 14th Amendment argument that if you come into our land illegally, you're not given the same rights as those that are able to that just break in. I do have to ask a question though, which is why the fight suddenly for the MS-13 members?
It's not MS-13 members. Once again, I'm going to state it again. I'm fighting for the Constitution of the United States, right? This is for America, not for, I don't care, like, even the people that murder people, they just still do deserve a right
just
to a
be consistent, did you speak up at all the last 4 years when American citizens that were January 6th defendants didn't have any of their constitutional rights? Were you out there going to open mics advocating for them?
I mean, I'm not aware.
No, answer the question.
Yeah, okay, so
were you fighting for American citizens that were given no pretrial detention, no attorney or representation? Were you out there fighting for the Constitution, or do you only fight for MS-13 members when it's politically convenient?
Yeah, no, so...
No, answer the question.
Absolutely. If everything you said is true, I would absolutely be against that.
No, did you?
I'm not even aware of it. So
exactly.
That's not exactly.
That's the point.
I just agree
that was
with
the
you.
greatest deprivation of constitutional rights that we saw from the federal government of our own citizens. And then out of nowhere, all these groups that wouldn't be found for 4 years, that did lift a finger when moms went into the U.S. Capitol and said a prayer with their pocket constitution on their purse, were thrown into federal jail. All of a sudden, all these advocacy groups come and sue the federal government over people that have raped children. But we're silent over American patriots and veterans that went into the people's house non-violently and said a prayer.
Wait,
the hypocrisy is stunning.
Wait, no, first off, I'm agreeing. I'm consistent on that. I agree.
No, but you didn't. The point, I'm not trying to criticize you.
It's
interesting what warrants the advocacy is what I'm getting. Is that all of a sudden we're all like big fans of the Constitution and due process, but the due process for all the other people that did not have the last 4 years was completely radio silence.
To be clear, I'm 20, so I've been 16 back then. So,
well, fine.
I'm just.
But you're not even aware. It's not your point. It's, let me just offer you some grace. It's not necessarily even your fault. It's the propaganda machine.
No, okay.
The propaganda machine that makes this whole thing like, oh, there's this Maryland father and all this. Meanwhile, we saw thousands of people.
What? Like, can I not wait? Sorry, can I not make the same point about the J6ers that invaded the Capitol that they don't deserve due process for invasion?
Many of them didn't get due process.
Okay, I mean, so why would you be against that?
No, of course I'm for it, but they're U.S. citizens. That's the distinction. Secondly, they didn't get due process. And thirdly, all the left-wing groups that are now suing Trump, they wouldn't lift a finger to go help any of the J6ers.
I mean, that's hypocrisy, sure. But
no, it's worse than hypocrisy. It's hierarchy. The left-wing groups basically say, it's more morally acceptable to come into this country and rape children. We'll fight for you than it is to walk into the U.S. Capitol and say a prayer if you wear a MAGA hat. That is basically the message that the left-wing activist legal community is sending right now.
I don't know why you keep jumping around. I'm trying specifically about the Fifth Amendment. Do you know specifically where in the Fifth Amendment it gives the carve-out where illegal immigrants or illegal citizens don't have the Fifth Amendment rights? Where's the carve-out for that?
It's a generally accepted judicial principle.
Under what case law?
Well, under plenty of, I would have to look up the specific case law.
I personally have. There has been zero case law that cites illegal immigrants. I mean, was it Miranda versus Arizona itself? That was under illegal immigrant.
Under the Enemy Invasions Act, so upon the declaration of an invasion, which President Trump signed on day one, right?
Yeah.
If you notice and recognize an invading force, so let me ask you a question. If all of a sudden China or Russia showed up with a bunch of tanks on our southern border, do we have to give all those people in tanks due process? Or are we able to shoot them?
Yeah, you're able to shoot them.
Okay, then why can't we do the same for MS-13 on our border? And we're actually being nicer than shooting them. We're sending back to their country of origin.
I'm not talking about MS-13. Once again, I'm talking about specific people that are not given due process. I mean, it's not like
we're talking in circles.
You're conflating issues. I mean, you're conflating issues.
But
first off,
they are an invading combatant force.
The invocation of the Aliens Enemies Act is completely unconstitutional the way he's using it.
Why?
Because he's giving people. He's writing. Shipping people away without due process? The same way the INA was used for Mahmoud Khalil. Completely unconstitutional.
No, it's totally constitutional.
Absolutely not. I don't understand how you can deport someone based off their First Amendment right.
Okay, but again, they are not a U.S. citizen. They are not afforded the same U.S. rights, the same rights that we are.
Though, correct? Lawful permanent resident.
Can they vote?
No, they can't.
Can they own a gun?
No, they can't.
Or is the government allowed to quarter soldiers in their home?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. Well, the point being is like at some point you don't have the same rights that we do.
I mean, wait, you said hoarding, so I mean, that's against the Third Amendment. I don't know.
Right. The point being they don't get the same rights that we do.
Well, no. They do absolutely get the same rights. It's the way
you just acknowledge they can't buy a gun.
Because, I mean, you would agree felons in the United States would constitutionally not have the same rights we have, right?
Some of them, yes, for a temporary period. But yes, the point being is that you do something to earn that distinction.
No, it gets revoked under a certain, I believe you have to...
So let me ask you a question. Okay. So do you think we should deport people that are here illegally?
Yes.
So what would a due process look like? Because how it works now, you get a court date in 18 months, and we would deport maybe a couple thousand people.
Okay. I mean, that's just American law. I mean, I don't know why you're so shocked at that.
No.
If you want to
just so you guys understand what that
because
means.
You have a fascist king that you
this
like.
is the left-wing conspiracy unfolding in front of your eyes.
You want an
let me explain it to you. Well, they'll say, oh, okay, we have to give everyone due process, and that means the deportations you voted for that you want will never happen because left-wing judges will slow this thing down to a grinding halt. When it is so clear and evident that these people are here illegally and they have invaded the country and committed crimes and they should return back to their country of origin. The failure to do that means you're no longer a country.
If you want to increase in federal judges, you can make that case, but you're not even advocating for that. You just want to supersede due process, anything in the Constitution, because you don't like illegal immigrants, right? Like that's just.
Well, it's not a matter of I don't like it. The people voted for it. Like this is a basic democratic value. Do the people get what they voted for, or do a bunch of unelected judges slow down the will of the people?
Yeah, so
that's the question.
I mean, would you be for if the majority of people voted to overdo the Constitution?
No, of course not.
Wait, so why? Why? It's the will of the people.
Because when the will of the people vote for something righteous and good, of which this is.
Oh, so it has to be righteous and good.
Of course it does.
Who determines what's righteous and good?
Exactly. Western morality, the scriptures. We go back to the root cause of the West.
But that's extremely subjective, though, correct?
No, it's not. It's actually unilaterally objective.
No,
you see, what was the agreed-upon moral principle the United States was formed on?
Not sure.
Yeah, it was the Bible. It was Western morality. Western morality of do not murder, do not steal, you can't touch kids, you're not allowed to break into a country without invite or warrant, and if you do, you'll return back to your country of origin. At some point, we get back to a truth claim, and the American people overwhelmingly voted for something.
Are you a theocrat, or do you believe in the...
No, I believe... Do you believe in separation of morality and state?
I believe, yeah.
You believe in separation of morality and state?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of dictate laws based off of morality.
No, you just said separation of morality and state.
I mean, just because we dictate it based off of morality, I mean...
No one believes in separation of morality and state. Every law is a reflection of some morality. Every single law.
Yeah, I know it's a reflection, but I mean, you can have someone unilaterally just say what their morality is, and
yes,
then we
of course. And
yeah, that's a separation.
No, but separation of church and state is not even in the U.S. Constitution. It's a whole separate issue. I'm not going to get into that.
I mean, I was just asking if you believed in that,
but yeah, just getting down to it, and I have to get to the next question.
Sure.
We are not going to allow orderly deportations to be thwarted by a group of district court judges that nobody voted for and thwart the will of the people to return our homeland back to native-born American citizens. Thank you so much.
All right.